Bashar al Assad, Portrait of a Dark Leader. Once there was a man in the spotlight of the world, a man who appeared as a figure of hope for his people, yet slowly morphed into a monstrous dictator. His name was Bashar al Assad. When you hear his name, perhaps you immediately think of a face, a name, but to truly understand who this man was, you must delve deeper. Born in 1965 in Damascus, Bashar al-Assad would soon become more than just a name. He would symbolize a dark chapter not only in Syria's history, but in world history. His father, Hafiz al-Assad, had ruled Syria for decades with an iron fist, establishing a totalitarian regime. But the true inheritance, an inheritance soaked in blood, was passed to his son. Bashar, seemingly an ordinary medical student, would soon reveal a far darker side once his father's death set the stage for his rise. When Hafiz al-Assad passed away, the power was handed down to his son. But this was no peaceful transition. It was part of a carefully orchestrated plot. Bashar al-Assad, unlike his image as a reformist, had no real interest in the well-being of his people. His rise to power was not a result of public support, but a meticulously planned strategy. His quiet, introverted personality as a young man belied the monstrous dictator he would soon become. He had studied medicine, becoming an ophthalmologist, and was on the path to a relatively quiet life in the West. But then, in 1994, his older brother Basil died in a car accident, and Bashar was abruptly called back to Syria. Within no time, he was being groomed for power, and the regime's propaganda machine transformed him into a symbol of hope for the people. But this hope would soon give way to terror. What was behind his first steps to power? Bashar al-Assad became president in 2000. When he first took office, the world viewed him as a potential reformist leader. Some Western leaders even considered him progressive. But this was nothing but a mask. Bashar's promises of reform, democracy, and freedom were soon exposed as empty. His only real aim was to retain power at any cost. Early on, Syria's people looked to him for change. They were promised democracy, freedom, and prosperity. But what they got was something far worse, a nightmare. The Damascus Spring, a period where some political activists hoped for change, was crushed swiftly. Writers, intellectuals, and dissidents who spoke out were either imprisoned or silenced, as the regime once again tightened its grip. Bashar's early promises were nothing but lies to consolidate power and eliminate any potential threats. The dark face of war. But Bashar al-Assad was not only a dictator, he would become the embodiment of terror. In 2011, when the Arab Spring protests spread to Syria, the people of the country rose up against his regime. But instead of listening to their calls for freedom, Bashar used brute force to silence them. The world watched as cities were bombed, families were torn apart, and innocent civilians were slaughtered by their own government. The brutality of Bashar's regime reached unimaginable heights. His forces launched chemical weapons attacks on civilians. In 2013, the Ghouta chemical attack killed over 1,700 people. The world recoiled in horror, but Bashar denied any responsibility, shifting the blame to others. Even as international pressure mounted, Bashar clung to his power, continuing his reign of terror. But these attacks were just the beginning of a series of war crimes that would leave a permanent scar on humanity. The end of the war and what came next. By 2011, the Syrian civil war had begun in full force, and the country was ravaged. Cities lay in ruins, millions of Syrians were displaced, and the death toll skyrocketed. Bashar al-Assad had turned his country into a war zone, and his own people were the victims. In the years that followed, the regime became synonymous with pain, suffering, and death. Syria was left in ashes. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed. People fled their homes, their families torn apart. Those who stayed behind were subjected to unspeakable horrors. And throughout it all, Bashar al-Assad remained at the helm of this destruction. But the war did not end. While the regime remained in power, Bashar's brutal methods, chemical weapons, airstrikes, and siege warfare, remained in place. His forces continued to target civilians and resist any attempts for peace. The world, for the most part, turned a blind eye, until the death toll reached unimaginable heights. What does this all mean? Today, Bashar al Assad is not just a name. He is a symbol of horror, of a people crushed under the weight of tyranny. His legacy is one of pain and suffering, and the world will not forget the crimes committed under his rule. The millions of lives lost, the cities reduced to rubble, and the dreams of an entire generation destroyed by a dictator's cruelty. These are the marks Bashar al-Assad has left on history. And as the world remembers his reign, one question lingers. Could a leader like Bashar al-Assad rise again? Could another tyrant, just as cruel, take the reins of power? The answer, perhaps, is more unsettling than we would like to admit. Bashar al-Assad's story is a stark reminder that absolute power corrupts absolutely. It serves as a warning. Dictators, no matter how they appear, can reshape nations, and their legacies can last for generations. Will the world allow another Bashar al-Assad to rise again? Or will history, haunted by the past, finally find a way to stop the cycle of tyranny? The answer may be more uncertain than we dare to imagine. But one thing is clear. Bashar al-Assad's shadow looms large in the history of humanity, and it will never be forgotten.